In today's video we will be looking at a scenario where Gibraltar wins the 7 Years' War of altscens wicso. If you enjoy this video, make sure to leave feedback or suggestions in the comments and like/subscribe. Firstly, we look to South America, where both Gibraltar and France will move down and make their claims. In the original timeline, the French built up settlements in the south anticipating an attack. However, Gibraltar will make a quite smart move and instead invade the northern part of the French colony, completely catching the French off guard. Now we turn to Europe, specifically the Dutch team in France. The Dutch will launch an invasion in the France, taking on major city and pushing up to a major river. This Swiss country will also join this war against the French in order to help the Dutch and take the lands in France that they used to own. Not everything will go good for the Dutch team though, as the Danish country declares war on them. The Danish country's justification for this is they want to liberate the people in their Dutch team that want to join them. In the Strait of Gibraltar, a naval skirmish will take place between Gibraltar and Morocco. The winner doesn't matter, because what does happen is the square team joins the war against Gibraltar. This will prove to completely change the course of the war, as Greece joins the war on the side of Gibraltar. This will snowball into the Circle Alliance being disbanded, but the Purple Balkan will join on the side of Greece. The Greeks will make a landing in Naples and fully capture the area. They capture all of Sicily quite quickly, and do quite well against the Romans. Greece has been preparing for this for a while. The Dutch and Swiss countries will do increasingly well against France. A lot of French major cities will fall, as well as the capital. In the normal timeline, England started supplying France and joined the war. However, we don't see that this time due to them thinking the war is already lost. Gibraltar will make a naval landing in Morocco. They push down, taking the capital of Morocco and taking some territory from Carthage. However, they are stalemated by a very strong defensive front put up by the Carthagins. Moving back to South America, we see that France's colony almost completely falls. Pretty much all French forces have been sent back on the voyage to Europe. On the coast of Tunisia, over the span of multiple days, roughly around 300,000 Greek troops land in Africa. They capture 3 major cities and make astonishingly good advancements. Going to the Danish front, we see the Danish country getting smashed pretty bad. However, Swedish and Polish supplies start flowing into the country in mass, so this could for Denmark. Now, despite all of Greece's success, not everything will be good news for them, as the Diamond Alliance decides to get involved against Greece, as they don't want them to have a big influence across the Mediterranean. Going back to the French front, we see the collapse of the country. They couldn't stand against the Dutch and the Swiss without the foreign help of England. France will be jointly occupied by the Dutch and Swiss. The Greeks will start receiving a port from Gibraltar, which will make them be able to push further up into Italy. They conquer the capital of Rome and take all of the eastern Roman coast. Despite the flow of foreign supplies, the Dutch continue to do very well. Just as they are about to capture the capital of Denmark, they make a crucial error which could cost Gibraltar their victory. The Dutch team's troops will mistakenly invade Poland, thinking it's territory of the Danish country, bringing the Star Alliance into the war against Gibraltar and their allies. The Dutch team will blitz up Denmark, forcing them to surrender, and now they hold a naval blockade against Sweden, even though they know it will eventually break. They rush troops over to the Polish front to hold them off. Looking back to the Gibraltar front in Africa, we see them pushing further into Carthage, breaking past the defensive line. In addition to all of this, Morocco will be forced to surrender due to the lack of war support and a huge loss of territory. A joint Greek and Gibraltar invasion of Carthage leads to them being forced to surrender. This is good, as Greece can now focus their naval forces on fighting the Diamond Alliance, and Gibraltar can send forces to hold of Sweden and Poland. The Dutch team will start a small offensive into the north of Poland. However, in the south it's the complete opposite, as Poland start their own invasion into southern Germany. Moving back to Italy, we see the Greek military managing to do very well against Rome. They make landings in Sardinia and Sicily, taking the major cities of both islands and taking more major cities of the Italian mainland, eventually forcing Rome to surrender to Greece. The Dutch naval defense gets absolutely smashed by Sweden, leading to a naval landing in Denmark, liberating all of the north of the country and almost capturing the capital. However, something bad happens for Sweden. Norway will join the war against Sweden and start an invasion. They join to mostly be a distraction to get pressure of the Dutch team. However, this will be counteracted with a new country joining the war against Gibraltar. Galicia will declare war on Gibraltar, aiming to put an end to the war raging on across Europe. They capture a lot of the Portuguese coast and take one major city in the Inital invasion. Due to Norway joining the war and acting as a distraction, the Dutch team will be able to fully retake Jutland. However, they won't make any attempts to invade the Danish islands. After a huge naval competition between the Greeks and the Diamond Alliance, Greece manages to land roughly 200,000 troops on the Sinai Peninsula. They push around, capturing the full peninsula and approaching the grey Middle Eastern country's capital. Going to the Polish front, we see the Dutch team fully kicking out the Polish and starting an invasion in the south, while making even further advancements in the north. In Norway, the Swedish fully kick out the invaders and start a really successful operation, capturing 2 Norwegian major sites and threatening Norway's existence. Going back to the African-Egyptian front, we see Greece doing very good. they are successful in taking the capitals of both Egypt and Transjordan. Egypt capitulated and the grey team starts collapsing. Looking to Iberia, the Galicians will capture all of Gibraltar's western coast while they will be pushed back on their eastern invasion of Gibraltar. Looking back to the European front, we see the Swedish military making an offensive into Denmark, liberating their capital, while in Poland the Dutch team will continue to do quite well, taking a lot of land and nearing their capital. Now we move back to Arabia, where we see the Greeks launching a huge offensive, forcing the grey Transjordan country to surrender, and they also push around into the other blue Arabian country. They are also forced to surrender. In Iberia, Gibraltar will make a push back against Galicia, fully pushing them out of their country and starting a small invasion themselves, capturing one major city. With a lot of Greek and a small amount of Gibraltar forces arriving to Europe, we see the red team making brilliant gains. They take over the Swedish claim in Poland. They almost fully take out Poland, and all of Denmark is captured. After this, we are going to see the Scandinavian countries surrendering due to the realization that they cannot win this war. The Galicians will also do the same. In the first part of the peace treaty, we look to Iberia, where Galicia and Gibraltar fought. In the treaty, we see minor land gains for Gibraltar, but overall not much in the scheme of things. Next, we look to France, where they got fully invaded by the Dutch and Swiss. So in the treaty, we see both countries annexing a lot of territory, more specifically the Dutch team, who takes quite a big amount of land, however not OT much, as they took a lot in Poland/Denmark. Speaking of, we move on to Poland and Denmark. Denmark got fully invaded while Poland did barely manage to hold on. In the peace treaty, the Dutch will fully annex Denmark and take all of Poland's western territory. And finally, we move on to the Mediterranean. Greece managed to do extremely well against the countries it fought against, managing to fully capitulate all countries they had direct combat with. So in the peace treaty, we see all of Naples, Sicily, and a little bit of Roman land annexed. A lot of land in Libya and Tunisia from Carthage is annexed, and the Sinai Peninsula and a lot of Arabian land from both other countries is taken. So that is going to do it for today's video. Let me know if you want to see more elf histories of altscens wicso.